Is this the beginning of the end for carnivore influencers? Are we starting to see the tide turn on the movement? Is their refusal to accept science over anecdotal evidence finally catching up with them? Let's see what Brian Turner uncovers. This is gonna shock you.
Steak and Butter Gal's meteoric rise to internet fame in the carnivore community seems like a true fairy tale, but under the surface, things aren't as rosy as they seem. This episode of The Meat Grinder is going to shock you, and just wait until you see what I uncover at the end. Steak and Butter Gal, carnivore diet fraudster, eats pasta and salad, but edits them out of her photograph. Whoa, he goes on to say, if you look closely, the dish she is eating contains pasta, wasabi, lemon, lettuce, and other salad. This is quite damning if it's true. And this isn't the first time carnivores have been caught eating the poisonous plants they are always so worried about. Paul Saladino's done it, Sean Baker's done it, the list goes on.
That would be insane if any of us ate meat and there was a picture of us holding onto a thing of meat that got published in an article.
Then I deserve to be sent to a slaughterhouse myself.
Do you know who that happened to, though? Seriously. Rawvana. She was a raw vegan, right? And in 2018, a fan walked into this remote cafe and saw her eating fish. So she's got like 1.5 million followers, right? Putting out videos at the time about raw veganism. And you can see in the video, Rawvana trying, like, clenching up and trying to hide the fish. It was so awkward.
I get it. You want to have one meal out of 970 this year that is animal-based. Is that significantly better than what the rest of the world is doing? Absolutely. And so as a behavior scientist, I implore people to live like that. But as an ethical vegan, I have other views.
Yeah. I do believe, like what you said, Shabnam, that it is better if somebody was 99% plant-based, but then you're plant-based, you're not vegan, because as we all know, vegan is an ethical choice to not engage in animal cruelty, as far as is practicable and possible. But practicable and possible doesn't mean I'm on holiday, so therefore I just have, I don't know, some cauliflower cheese or some steak. And also, like, on this same topic of the steak and butter gal, she's built her big following on saying, I only eat this. This is what you should eat. This is what's healed my, ailments and whatever. And if that's not actually true and what she's doing in the background is something different, then she could be seriously damaging people's health. Like, if people are following along with her and thinking, well, she's done it and this is how she looks and this is how she is, I think that's just a very dangerous thing to do. So, like, building a name for yourself on one thing and then it's not real is problematic.
One of the people that actually did own it when they reverted back from what they recommend online as an influencer is Dr. Paul Saladino. He put up his hand and he said, actually, fruit is where it's at. I'm going to include fruit back into my diet.
After about a year to a year and a half of a carnivore diet, I began to notice issues. Probably in my case, arising due to electrolyte insufficiency, connected with consistently very low insulin because I wasn't really eating any carbohydrates, and the protein I was eating probably wasn't as insulinogenic as it needed to be. This led to muscle cramps. I had problems with sleep. I had heart palpitations, fluttering of my heart. I had something called hypnagogic jerks, where I would fall asleep but jerk myself awake like I was falling multiple times. That was very stressful and very traumatic. It led to very poor sleep for a little while. That eventually was possibly remedied by magnesium IVs, but the reason I got low in magnesium in the first place was probably due to a ketogenic diet in my case. I had declining lab values that were important to me, specifically lower total testosterone, higher sex hormone binding globulin, which leads to a lower free testosterone, and a lower free testosterone index. And I had the sense that I was cold or a little bit cold all the time. And when I looked at my labs, my thyroid levels, specifically my total T3 and free T3, were not ideal. I'll talk about what I think all of these were connected with in this video, but ultimately the solution for me was adding back carbohydrates. If any of you have followed my story in the past, you know where this goes. I've since transition to something that I think of as an animal-based diet, where I still eat meat and organs, animal fat and salt, but I get carbohydrates from things like fruit, honey, and raw dairy.
So much to talk about there. I mean, for me, I'm a positive guy. I will take away the positives. The guy is acknowledging you need fruit in the diet. And fair play to that.
Fiber and sugar, like, you need them. They're essential. Honey and raw milk, though, like,
well,
raw milk?
Yeah, he was in the White House recently, promoting raw milk. I mean, that's just the health industry and the influencer industry has just taken a huge twist this year. I mean, you never would have thought a few years ago that would be the case.
Yeah, it's intriguing calling it the animal-based diet as well. Because remember we showed one of his videos before and he was like, here's a fully animal-based dessert, and it was a watermelon. And we were like, what are you talking about? How is that animal-based? Like, what? I guess like the majority of what he's eating comes from an animal or is an animal, and then he's throwing in fruit. But yeah, I think fair play that he owned up to it and he actually does go through like his blood work and stuff. Like it's not just anecdotes. Like you can actually click on the other video that shows his blood work, which I think that's a big, bold move. He could have been like absolutely cancelled for showing the truth. But I guess like he said, he wants to help people who might be struggling.
So there is another carnivore doctor kind of person who just this week turned his back on the carnivore diet. Let's go.
All right, Dr. Kiltz here. And you know, I've been Mr. Crazy Carnivore for nearly 15 years. I've felt amazing. And some recent things happening all over the world and in my life personally. We've seen some people leave us in this world and maybe in a very polarizing way, potentially. And recently, I've also had a test that showed my CAC score went from 700 to 800. My CT angiogram noted a few more plaque sites with calcium in my LAD, in my right coronary artery, and in my circumflex. Although my heart function and my blood flow is excellent, I feel great. I recently suffered from some acute colitis. I don't know what it was, but I did some fasting, got some salmon. I also bought some halibut, tuna, and sea bass. I love scallops. I love lobsters, and I love beef. But maybe my focus on only beef and carnivore is not going in the right direction completely. Maybe being a little bit softer and inclusive. That's what I'm working on. You know, I'm not ready for broccoli, but baked potato with a lot of sour cream and butter, yeah. But I'm going to say, hey, listen, if you throw in a little bit of broccoli or asparagus in that, you know, that's okay.
So yeah, I mean the guy has gone from all meat to mostly meat in order to be more inclusive. Is it more inclusive? Yes, it actually is. Um, what do you think?
Shabnam has lost it. Oh my God.
I mean, it's sometimes hard to know where to start, isn't it? You couldn't make it up.
Really wanted to hear more about his CAC score, the total area of calcium deposits and the density of the calcium as seen in the heart, right? Because this is a great indicator of heart disease, heart attack, stroke. And so when he so casually says that he didn't really like his CAC score, I would have really loved for him to dive into that a little bit more as a doctor, explaining the importance of that.
Yeah, what I also found intriguing is that he started it off by saying, you know, recently we've lost a few people from the community, as in like they've died, is what I picked up from that.
I thought is like they just left the community, but so he's talking about mortality rate.
I think so. And that's why it sort of flipped him into this new way of thinking, plus his own health results. I don't know for sure, but that's what I took from it, just the way it was delivered.
There was a study a few years ago by the Journal of Internal Medicine, and it showed that ketogenic dieters had a 30% increased mortality. Now, the carnivore community will say, well, we're not keto the way they are, you know, because ketogenic is quite a broad thing. However, a carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet. So it is a form of ketogenic nutrition, right?
Wild times. But also, I like how he was like, well, I'm not going to go as far as broccoli.
The extremities of nutrition patterns, and on one end of the spectrum is broccoli. It's crazy, isn't it? It's madness.
But white potatoes slammed in butter and high fat, you know, high carbohydrate with high fat. When we talk about digestion, you know, high fat impedes digestion. So when you have something like a fast digesting carbohydrate, like a potato laden with butter and all these sorts of fats, you're going to start to see some metabolic challenges in terms of your digestion, especially if you now pair that with high fat meat.
Maybe we'll check in for an update video in a couple of months.
I'd love to, and to be quite honest, I would love to invite Dr. Kiltz to have a conversation with us, to share his, CAC markers and his scores with us, and I think it's really important to invite them to the table.
It'll be interesting to ask him why he doesn't recommend what can some say reverse the progression of heart disease, which is a plant-based diet. But then he's into fertility and I guess, erection dysfunction, stuff like that, same principle, right? So whichever disease you look at, a plant-based pattern of eating really helps. But yeah, I agree. Let's get him on the show. So what are the closing remarks then on this topic? I guess number one is be integrous, not just with your diet by going plant-based vegan, but also with your message. If you're gonna say you're doing X, do X. And if you're not doing it, that's cool. Just be honest.
Have integrity. I'd like for that standard to become standardized again.
Yeah, and also lastly, let's just not put influencers on a pedestal and like follow what they do because it turns out they can just change their mind at any time and not tell us. So let's stick with the randomized control trials, the studies, the data. Let's focus on that.
If you find someone that you really respect or you love what they say, do a little deep dive into their history. An hour deep dive into your favorite influencer doesn't take a lot of work, but it could save you a lot of heartache and be very helpful for your health down the line.
Lastly, just quickly to end on, who's your favorite carnivore influencer or doctor?
Favorite carnivore? I don't think I have a favorite carnivore.
Mine is Sean Baker. I don't know if you know him. He's this massively macho carnivore guy who like deadlifts an enormous amount. I think he's a Dr. Sean Baker, but he was stripped of his doctor credentials a few years ago and just he's like a cartoon character. But it seems like a very nice guy and open to dialogue. So we should maybe invite him on the show.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Paul Saladino. I like that he was like fully honest. I didn't like it before when he just kind of did it and didn't say why he was now not fully carnivore. But now that he's actually sort of come out and explained it, I think it's fair play. I want to see where it goes next.
Shabnam is yours, Dr. Kiltz, because he's more inclusive.
He's never going to come on the show, is he?